whether you're in a public setting and doing a presentation, or you're in front of your team, or you're making a movie in the middle of the night in the woods. It's the same thing. Just be present, listen, understand, and connect.
Welcome to the Schmidt List, the podcast for people dedicated to managing successful projects, developing impactful products, and building engaged teams. And now, here's your host, Kurt Schmidt.
Hello and welcome to episode 41. Today, I am lucky to share with you an interview with an amazing individual. Patrick Riley is one of the co-founders of Modern Survey, which made a significant impact in changing the way that companies survey their employees. Patrick joins me to talk about his experiences in not only what it's like to build a successful company, but also his background as a musician and a filmmaker. Patrick is truly a Renaissance man, and I'm excited to share this discussion with you. One quick note, remember to mark your calendars for October 1st as the Schmidt List's first live recording is taking place at Fulton Tap Room in downtown Minneapolis. My three guests and I will be talking about what it means to influence without authority and the importance of managing up and across in order to get your best work done. Okay, enough of that. Let's jump right into my talk with Patrick. Patrick, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Kurt. It's great to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. Your background is so interesting to me because you're not only been successful in technology and business, but you've also been very successful in the arts. You worked in filmmaking and been a musician. Tell me about what came first, the arts or the business? Like, how did that happen for you?
Yeah, it's so interesting to go back in time. When I was in college, my intentions were really very much around the arts. So I got my degree in filmmaking, and my idea was to be a film director. Mm-hmm. So fresh out of college, I landed in Minneapolis and was working initially in public television, and then was working on some independent movies and music videos here in the Twin Cities. This is many, many years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, this is great. Kind of starting to break into the business. Then ended up in Los Angeles for a year, breaking into the studios.
As you do, right? As
kind of going through that traditional, let's just try and learn the business and find my way around. But then I was presented with the first kind of, challenging period. So like I said, I really had wanted to be a director. So I was working on a lot of scripts. So I went through this period where with a screenwriting partner, this is my early 20s, where we were writing our first couple movies. And then we had some producers that were interested in the film. And we were like, oh, this is amazing. You're 23 years old. We're going to make our first independent film. And we went through that whole process of interest, getting it shopped around LA. But everybody that looked at it wanted a little change or something a little different, or this would be good for such and such actor if you were maybe to rewrite it this way. Oh. So by the end of this period was about a 2 or 3 year period. And by the end of that, I was exhausted and jaded, at 24 or 25, I was like, this business is crazy. But that was one of my first big learnings. And I use that as an example. Was my lesson in integrity. And literally in the basement of my house, I have the 15 versions of the script. The first one is that original beautiful idea, which is this little indie movie. And by the end, it's this complete horrible piece of Hollywood crap.
Right. It doesn't look like anything what you thought it would.
Exactly. And the game was with my screenwriting partner, it was just, man, if we can just get this movie made, then we can go do what we really want to do the next movie. But it was a lesson in integrity, and that is a big thing that carried forward with me. I didn't know this yet, much into business. And then I ended up, after that, I was a musician for many years and sort of took that lesson in integrity and said, okay, I was like this sort of idealistic punk rocker for the next 3 or 4 years.
Nice.
That put strong rules around how we made things and very non-commercial, and my integrity really started to deepen. But to pay the bills as a poor punk rocker, this is sort of the late 90s. This is when tech was just beginning, and I happened to have had some skills as a coder, and I started to sort of jump into some tech and learn that. And that was just sort of a side hustle for me at the time. Then as I started to move forward in technologies, eventually to cut to the chase, I didn't make any money as a musician, but those learnings around integrity, process, how you build these ad hoc teams, like a band is an ad hoc team, how you get people to understand and believe what you're making, how you try to remain authentic and stay focused on your original ideas. Those lessons were so important to me when I became an entrepreneur in business, and I had no idea how valuable they would be. And so I think my earliest experiences started to inform my my skills as a business person, and that helped me be a lot more successful.
The thing that I hear a lot when I'm talking to people on the show is that sort of, I had assumed that these were all the things that were going to make me successful, these frameworks, these different types of approaches, StrengthsFinder and Myers-Briggs, and I'm doing all the business things that my friends who have MBAs told me needed to be done. But like you said, a lot of times it comes down to just how you're promoting your vision, about how you're coaching teams, and about how you're getting people excited, both potential users, buyers, or whatever you want to call it, versus the people that are actually helping you create that world, right? Because like you were saying in a band, right? Like you got to get everybody excited about the music you're doing in the band, and everybody wants to. You don't want any songs that you're playing where the drummer is like, I hate this song, but I'll whatever. Everybody else seems to be fine with it, right? And then in the same aspect, you want to put on a good show, right? Mm-hmm. And I think to your point, I think that does translate a lot into entrepreneurship. And the one thing that I read that you've talked about is that when you were doing the filmmaking and the band stuff, how physical it was. And I can imagine, like, as you move into business and things, you're thinking that's going to be totally different, right? You're not going to have that kind of endurance test sort of thing. I always tell this story. My father, when I got involved in and I'm using air quotes, internet back in the mid 90s, he said, you're crazy for getting involved in that. And I was like, why, Dad? It's the future. This is where everything's going. He's like, but it's on 24 hours a day and it never shuts off. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about, you know? And boy, did he knew what he was he knew what he was talking about. He was like, why don't you just be a manager at 7-Eleven? That's open 24 hours a day. But did you find that, like you were mentioning, I think the word that comes to mind when I'm listening to you talk is resilience, when it translates from that being that filmmaker and musician into entrepreneurship, right? Yeah,
and absolutely, resilience is a great way to describe it, Kurt. And I think I learned things in both forums or places, meaning the business world, the office world, so to speak, versus the the film set or being on tour in a band. And I think that, so here's some observations I've had. I'm going to start with the entrepreneurship. And in fact, I was just talking to my brother about this earlier today, and he was another co-founder of our company, Modern Survey, which we sold to Aon about 2.5 years ago. And we were talking about some of those early days and the 24-hour days. We've all worked them, or the 36-hour days. There was a few of those. Yep. And it's that we talked about those being those sort of clutch moments when you just have to find what you have to make whatever it is you're working on. You've just got to find the solution. You just don't give up until it's done.
You just got to grind.
And at whatever it takes. And, you have those tests, those sort of, thresholds or gates that you come to and you choose to take on that challenge. And if you get through it, it's incredibly rewarding the way it feels, but also the outcomes from it. But when I think of, so that's sort of in the office, but it's still kind of a safe place compared to the film set or something. So literally, I'm a film producer now, and I'm wrapping up an independent feature film. And just 2 weeks ago, I was shooting a scene, and it was a stunt scene. We shot this right here in Minneapolis. Okay, 2 night shoots in a row, and I worked a 24-hour day 2 weeks ago. I'm 50 years old, so this is still what happens. And I worked from 7 a.m. till about 7 p.m. to produce, to get us ready for the shoot. And it was everything that could go wrong did go wrong. We needed vintage cars. Once the owners of the vintage cars figured out we were doing stunts, they freaked out. So I lost all my cars. Oh no! So I'm trying to find people with period pieces to let me, do these quote unquote stunts with. I've got these high end stunt guys in from LA. These are guys from Fast and the Furious and Black Panther, like literally some of the best guys in the business. I just got to get them cars, right? and motorcycles that we can have some fun with.
The clock is ticking.
And the clock is ticking. So anyway, we got it. Everything came together the way these things do. And then we worked all night. And of course, as a producer, I mean, we're tearing through the woods and the back roads, trying to simulate this chase scene in Alabama in 1972. And it's a hard night. We're just working hard. It's dangerous. I'm thinking about, every time the car goes flying around at 60 miles an hour, I'm like, please don't smash into the camera, please, and just that extreme physicality of that. But it was so cool to work with stunt coordinators because these guys do this stuff every day and they're so fluent in it and comfortable with it. It was really cool to see where it's all about safety first and designing it, but again, it's this very physical process, very high stakes process. And it's pretty cool to see that. And then in trying to keep the team focused as you're working through the night, it's just, a really, really intense thing. Like you can't see anything. Like these things you don't think about when you're shooting in the woods. Like when you're walking back from the grip truck back to the set, and like it's pitch black. It's like you better have a headlamp. So it's it's that kind of intensity that comes with the process. But then when I've had those experiences, then I come back into the office, and you kind of still want that physicality in the way we work.
Right, that adrenaline rush.
Adrenaline rush, and just the physicality of just being up, standing, pushing, grinding.
Right.
So it's become to me, as I've just got to observe this from different places, it's very interesting to me how those, like you said, the resilience and intensity of work and how you can learn from that and build teams to perform under these, under duress and under challenging circumstances.
Right. And let's talk a bit about, and I want to get back to that team talk, but let's talk about Modern Survey a little bit. Tell me about the inception of that and like how that came to be.
Yeah, the year was late in 1999 when we had the first idea, and it was myself and a couple of business partners or friends who became business partners. Mm-hmm. The idea was pretty simple. We said, hey, companies like American Express, where I was working at the time, and also companies like United Health Group, where my brother, who was one of the co-founders, was working at the time, we were watching them spend literally millions of dollars on employee surveys. Mm. And employee surveys were done on paper and with scannable forms. So the idea was really simple, literally back in the napkin. Let's be one of the first companies that can do this on the web. Mm-hmm. We saw how much they were spending. The idea was let's disrupt it. That word didn't really exist then, but that was the plan. And then we just had a series of, this is my favorite part of the story. We started the company with $3,000 and we're able to bootstrap that all the way up to, eventually a company that was doing close to $6 million in revenues when we did our exit. So it can be done. Yeah. We got lucky in a lot of ways. We had an early vision for software as a service company. We had this idea that you should just be able to build things through a browser. Yep. And so we had to build an enterprise backend. We knew it had to be a great experience for the survey taker as well as the HR administrator. They needed to kind of see the results coming in real time and gain insights. Yeah. So we went from kind of a survey company solving a simple need to eventually an analytics and insight company. And there was that constant, I think, understanding of how things were changing and how we could continue to bring the highest value we could to what we were doing. In the same year we were established, SurveyMonkey was born, but they were solving for something completely different, which was a survey for everybody for any case, really inexpensively. But we kind of tried to stay focused on the highest value need that we could see.
And so, one of the things that I'd love to talk to founders, especially of a SaaS company, is how did you manage balancing the vision that what you had versus the customization requests that would come? Because I can imagine that a UHC or any of these larger companies would be like, yeah, this is great, but it needs to do you need to basically scrap a third of that and do it our way. How did you balance that? Because I know a lot of SaaS people that struggle with that where, I want this big account and they want all these changes, but geez, that's a lot of work and it kind of detracts from our vision. Did you find that? And then if so, how did you balance that?
It was a real challenge for the first probably 6 years. Okay. And there's a lot of one-off stuff, a lot of learning. Because you're when this is the downside to being a bootstrap company is you're chasing revenues, you're chasing deals, and you get your first $100,000 opportunity, and when you're hungry, you'll do anything.
Yeah, there's no saying no. Right?
There's no saying no, and you just do it. It was somewhere probably around 2004, 2005, so maybe 4 or 5 years into it, where we really started to understand what we were doing and what we were building, and then it was all right. We need to build a platform. We need to really build a platform. And that was the beginning of a lot of discipline and a lot of resilience to deliver on that, which was, we kept saying, and it was also recruiting the right kinds of architects and software engineers at the time to help us figure out. I mean, we were, me and my brother, who were the main software guys initially, we were good coders, but we were ultimately hacks, know. So we needed some real engineers. So we started to get into that discipline of, or what are the common things we're solving for? Let's continue to platform that. If we're doing one-off things, let's have a way to do it, but then let's try and retrofit those as features in as soon as we can. I'd say by the end, we were probably 95% platform and 5% customization.